Hello. We are back, ready to go with our answers. So not going to take too long. I'm going to whiz through the answers, and then that way I can free up to get on with whatever you have left for the rest of today. Okay. Let's get started then. Question 1. If it's 12 noon in Ireland's time zone, then the time in the next zone to the east is 1 hour ahead. Is plus 1 hour, and the time zone and the next time zone to the west is minus 1 hour. So you can also put in the times there. So if it's 12 noon in Ireland, it is 1 p.m. And in the west, it is 11 a.m. Okay, so those are your answers for question 1A. The first one in the east is 1 p.m. and in the west, it's 11 a.m. Question 1B, as we travel east, each time zone is 1 hour further ahead. As we travel west, each time zone is 1 hour further behind. So those two words, ahead and behind, and they're kind of just keywords. Remember, we said in maths, it has its own terminology, its own language. And when we're discussing time, those two words, ahead and behind, are kind of the two key terms that we use to discuss. Okay, and that's all question 1B was trying to get. Question C then says, why do you think are the lines not straight? What problems would be caused by having straight lines dividing up the time zones? We discussed that. We just said that it would mean countries would have split time zones, potential for neighbours to be on opposite times. So could you imagine if you are to start work at 9 o'clock, your neighbour also starts work at 9, but yet you are on two different time zones, so you both be leaving an hour apart or something to that degree. So that's anything along them lines, absolutely fine. I say the question does say, why do you think? So anything that just says it just wouldn't be practical, it'd be a bit complicated if a country is split up in time zones, and it's more the case if the country is small. As we discussed earlier, larger countries do have to get split up. But if it's a small country, it would be very, very complicated to have that happen. So moving on then, question D says, what problems does a country like the USA have with time zones? I just said it's so large that it occupies a wide range of time zones, and that the time zones in the west and east are a large gap. So although they're one country, they actually have a large time difference between its west and east coast. Really the only problem that they have. Okay, so anything along those lines that it takes up a lot of time zones, it occupies a large space of time zones, and the difference in time from coast to coast would become very different, and that type of thing. All right. And again, then when it comes to time and time zones, when you're talking about complications and stuff, it's all usually related to businesses and all that stuff. So, time zones, if businesses aren't allowed to work until 9 o'clock or open until 9, then it causes this whole different pace, different times. Okay, so anything along them lines. Question 2 then says, use the map of the time zones and your atlas to help you answer the following. Most of these you should have been able to find on the map. You should have been able to find most of these on the map, although it was quite difficult. Okay, so let's have a look just while we're here. Why aren't all countries time the same? I said it's to do with the sun and its movement and Earth's movement around the sun. So you couldn't have them all the same, because generally you want daylight. You want daylight to be during day hours. So if everybody was the exact same and started at the exact same time, countries in the west would end up having their sun like at a total different time of the day, and that type of thing. So the time zone is to try and help that idea of sunrise beginning around, say, 6 in the morning, or as close to that mark as possible. So sunrise tends to happen as close to that mark as we can possibly get it. Now, it varies from season to season, but generally all countries will have that sort of 6 o'clock start to their day, and they'll get sunshine all the way through until the end. Okay, the only countries that don't are the ones at the very top, and at the very bottom are North and South poles. And that's because if you think of the Earth spinning around and that sunlight getting shone and then being hid away for 12 hours or 6 hours, it doesn't happen at the North and the South poles. They actually will have seasons where they pretty much almost have 24 hours of sunshine, and then they'll have seasons where they almost have pitch darkness for 24 hours. So they're the only two differences because they sit at the North Pole and the South Pole. But everything that fits around that band, the equator band, they're the ones that really notice the difference, okay? So it's those countries in that middle section of the planet Earth that they'll notice that time zone difference, okay? So anyway, as we were, question 2, let's whiz on through. So for each of these questions, we imagine that it's 12 o'clock in Dublin, and then we figure out the times based on that time zone. And this one's nice and easy because we're based in Dublin, so our starting point just goes with that grid. So answers were 2A, in New York, it's 7 a.m. In San Francisco, it is 4 a.m. In Moscow, it's 4 p.m. In Berlin, it is 1 p.m. In Sydney, it's 10 p.m. In, where do we get to? Bangkok, it is 7 p.m. In London, it is 12 p.m. Exact same time as Dublin. And Rio de Janeiro, in Rio de Janeiro, it's 9 a.m. So there were the answers for question 2. Question number 3 then, we're looking at, now try these time puzzles. These ones slightly more difficult. For these, you had to find the original country and then try and find out what time zone it's in, and then it becomes like a number line. Okay, so slightly difficult. The only one that really, question 3C I find to be the most sort of challenging one. Okay, so anyway, question 3A, if it's 2 o'clock in Oslo, in Mumbai, I put it at 6:30 p.m. I'm just thinking I maybe messed up. It was something and a half hours from Mumbai, 5.5 hours, 4.5 hours later. 4.5. Yeah, no, 6:30 p.m. is what I went for. 0 plus 5 from there. Yes. So, just to make sure I got that one right. So, you're in Oslo. Oslo is +1. So, it's 1 hour ahead of us. Now, from us to Mumbai is 5.5 hours. So, Mumbai is 5.5 hours from us. So, if Mumbai is 5.5 hours from us, remember, Oslo is already 1 ahead of us. So the difference there is 4.5 hours. So there's 4.5 hours difference between Oslo and Mumbai. Oslo is slightly closer to Mumbai than us. So that's the reason there's a 4.5 hour time difference between those two. So if it's 2 o'clock in the day, add 4.5 onto it, you get 6:30 p.m. Just making sure. Alrighty. If it's 21:40 in Beijing, what time is it in Athens? I put it at 3:40 or 3:40 p.m. or 15:40 if you went for 24-hour time. It'd be 15:40. Okay, it's 20 to 4. Because you're in Beijing, which is further to the east, and then you're working your way back to the west, so you're coming back in time. Okay, so if you're always moving to the west, you're always coming back in time, and if you're moving to the east, you're always going ahead of time. All right, work it like that. And C I said was slightly difficult. 6:34 in Chicago. What time is it in Vienna? The only one I said this was slightly difficult is because when you are looking at your atlas, you're dealing in minus hours and then a plus hour, which sometimes can be a bit confusing in our head. But that's why I said, if you try in your head, think, okay, I'm moving to the east, so everything should be going ahead of time. And if I'm coming back the way, it's going back in time. Alrighty. If you're going to the west, everything's always back in time. All right. So use that rule to try and help you with some of these. So anyway, 6:34 in Chicago. It makes it 12:34. 12:34 or 12:34 p.m. in Vienna. All right, because Vienna's going to be ahead of it by 6 hours or something. If it's 1952 in Melbourne, what time is it in Nairobi? It is 12:52 p.m. Melbourne, right on the east coast of Australia, which is +10. Nairobi in Africa, which is +3, which means there's a 7-hour difference. So there's a 7-hour difference between them, and Nairobi is 7 hours behind Melbourne. So take your 1952, take 7 hours off it, and you get 12:52. And then question 4, it is the idea of traveling to New York from Dublin. Your plane took off at 3 o'clock. The flight took 5 hours. What time would you land in New York? You would land in New York at 3 o'clock in the day, the exact same time that you took off, because it is 5 hours to New York and it's 5 hours behind us. So the 5 hours that you spend traveling end up getting took off in the time zone. So you still land at 3 o'clock. Now, the difference being you've been either awake or snoozing for them 5 hours during the flight. And that is your work done. It was only questions 1 to 4. Okay. If you've done question 5, I can answer it very quickly. If you're traveling from New York to Dublin, your plane took off at 11 and the journey took 6 hours. What time will you land in Dublin? 11 plus 6 puts it at 5 p.m. It is 5 p.m., but then remember Dublin is going to be 5 hours ahead of them. So if it's 5 p.m., another 5 hours, it's 10 p.m. in Dublin if you've done question 5. Okay, be 10 p.m. Alrighty. So I'm not sure if you've done question 1 to 5. I think it was only 1 to 4. But if you've done question 5, that was your answer, 10 p.m. Alrighty, because you have 6 hours for that, and then you're losing 5 hours as well, or adding 5 hours on for time zones. Alrighty, that was today's work. Hope you find it all good. Alrighty. Yeah. No real questions. Super. Really well done, guys. And as always, I'll be on the Google Classroom there if you need me. Alrighty. Well done, guys.